Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to do a brief summary of what we have been discussing or sharing in research method for the last 13 weeks. Okay, so when you're doing research, okay, the first thing that you always need to understand or find is your research problem. What is the problem that you are trying to address, or you saw that happen in the society, or that is triggering for you to conduct a study? Okay, there must be like a starting point. So that is, remember, that is just an idea. So how far is this idea has been reviewed or has been studied, to what extent it has been studied, or how what are the options or solutions that they have come out for this study. All these need to be find out, because you cannot be studying an issue assuming that you are the first person and this is a new topic. So you need to verify your idea. So how do you do that? You have to explore reading the literatures. You have to explore the articles written by other researchers. So that is what the stage of literature review is really trying to emphasize. Okay, so that is a very crucial steps to verify your idea. So from your ideas as a problem, you need to verify it. How many people have explored it? What areas have they explored it? So why your idea has not been explored? What is actually, you cannot find the exact same studies, but you will find similar studies. So that is why you need to do a critical analysis of the findings of the topics that people have already researched. So it becomes under, or it falls under, the topic of literature review. So once you have an understanding of the problem from people's research, the next step is you have to improvise on your research problem. You see, you start your research with an idea or with a problem, but you look at the literature, people have already explored it. Maybe there are some areas that they have left out, and you trying to address those issues. Okay, so for example, there is a lot of studies on the let's say that anxiety among people during COVID-19. Okay, so they are talking about employment, but when they're talking about anxiety, employment, but what about the anxiety among students? So your topic will be focusing on students' anxiety. So that is how you improvise your research problem based on the understanding and also exploration from literature review. The next step is, okay, before going to the next step, so when you improvise your research problem, that is when you discuss it under problem statement. Okay, so problem statement in writing comes before literature review, but ideally you need to conduct your literature review first to understand what actually the problem is, how it has been studied. Okay, but when you're reporting it, it starts with problem statement. Next is you have to explain what you are trying to address from your research. So you identified the problem. Now is the time to say, okay, what I am going to address in this problem. So that is what we mean by objectives. What is the aim of your study? So your aim, for example, could be studying students' anxiety level. Okay, so you wanted to investigate students' anxiety levels during corona outbreak. Okay, so, or you want to study about students' perception towards lockdown. So you need to tell us what is your aim, what you want to achieve from this study. Okay, that is your research objectives. So research objectives has to be measured. You have to write it in a way that you can measure them, or you can able to quantify the information. So how do you do that? Through research questions. So you translate your objectives into questions, because from questions you can ask people. Okay, when it is just the objective, it's just a regular statement, so you cannot get information. You're only telling what is your aim is all about. But when you start asking questions, you are able to get information for analysis or for understanding about the phenomenon. So you have to specify the question that you want to ask for the problem. Okay, let's go back to the idea of anxiety of students during COVID-19. So one of your research questions could be, what was your experience of learning through online mode during this COVID-19 pandemic? So objectives are general. You want to understand about anxiety, but when you get to research questions, it becomes specific questions because you wanted to ask specific information. So the questions can be, do not go more than 3. Okay, it is not doable. If you have a lot of research question, you are asking a lot of information, so you have to, for the beginners, for even for research grants, when you apply for external funding, they advise for 3 research questions. So once you ask questions, okay, I want to know about your anxiety level. Next is, you need to know how to gather the information. You know what you want, and now you need to identify how you are going to get the information. That is what we call as research design. The way that you gather information for your specified research question. So remember, your research question will dictate to your research design. So if you are talking about causal effect, your research design will be experimental. If you are talking about exploring experiences, lived experiences, cultural experiences, then you are going on the direction of qualitative research designs. So once you know the design, okay, the way of conducting gathering information, next is you have to illustrate the process of gathering the information. The process is the sampling and data collection, or the procedures in general. You need to tell us how you are going to get these information. I'm going to use this approach, but how are you going to implement it? So the implementation is usually the sampling and data collection. Once you know, okay, I'm going to do this way, I'm going to implement it this way, you also need to specify what tools are you going to use. Okay, so it is just like cooking. So you know you want to cook a chicken curry, or you want to cook a pasta. So you need to know what you need, what are the information or what are the ingredients you need, and you also need to know what are the cooking utensils that you need in order to produce this food. So in terms of research, you need to know how are you going to measure the information. Okay, are you going to use a questionnaire to collect the information, or are you going to use interviews, or are you going to do observations, or are you going to use documents? So you need to understand what type of tools that are you going to use to gather this information, and that is what we label as measures. Okay, so how are you going to measure the information? Through questionnaire or how? So you need to describe those tools. Then it is your responsibility as a researcher to explain the process of managing the information. You have to tell us, okay, now when you have this information, how are you going to analyze it? How are you going to answer the question? Okay, so you need to specify the analysis techniques. If you are going by qualitative, then you have to explain your thematic analysis, for example. Or if you are doing experimental design, then you can explain, maybe you want to run a one-way ANOVA, or you are running a t-test. So you need to specify what type of analysis that you are going to conduct. Next is, once you have already managed your information, you have done the analysis, you have to make connection between the information that you retrieve and also to your research question. You see, end of the day, all this process is to find answers for your research question. So in the discussion section of your write-up of your research, you need to answer every research question. You have to tell us what did you find and why is that results in such a way, because that is the crucial discussion. Basically, the quality of your research, what type of scholar or do you, people will always decide based on your discussion, because that is when it is your voice. You can tell what happened and why these things might happen. It is a room for you to explain your findings. Okay, that is the very crucial part of the research. So whenever you do something, you have to do a closure. So that is what we mean by the conclusion. So you identify the problem, so what it is. So what you found something, right? Under discussion you already said what are my findings, why it happened. So in conclusion you want to tell us, okay, maybe these are the reasons. You're concluding the study, the problem, by saying, okay, the anxiety is because of uncertainty in the environment, safety, and anxiety, the grading system, the assessment, something like that. So it actually tries to tell us that this is just not, it is just not the findings, but what can people do or what people can get out of your study. Okay, so it's trying to make a closure for your entire study. You started with a problem, now you want to give solutions or potential suggestions for your problem. And finally, it is usually implications. You need to provide the significance of the study. So who will benefit from your study? That is also important when you're writing a research, because the research, as we have said in the very, very beginning of research method, is we want to make things better. Okay, so when you conduct a research, it is not for your own sake, but you want to improve other people's life. You want to help to improve other people's life, or for betterment of education, or betterment of a certain discipline or psychology or something like that. So you need to indicate on to what extent does your study can help to provide an impact to other people. What type of impact can they provide? Okay, so that is what we mean by the significance. So what do you need to consider when you are doing a research? Firstly, familiarity to the topics. Make sure you have a good grasp or good understanding of the topics that you would like to explore. That is very, very important, because only then you know that the areas, or who are the famous authors in the area, and what are the recent trends in the particular topic. So the familiarity is very, very important. Okay, only when you get very familiar, you get comfortable in that topic, so you can explore further. Next is interest. Interest is very, very important, because research is not can be done in just 1 or 2 days. It is a long process, an iterative process, and also depends on the type of approach that you are using. Either you are using qualitative or quantitative approach. There are challenges involved in it. So without that interest, you might lose your confidence, and also your the quality of work if you're not interested in the topics that you are investigating. So whenever you're choosing a topic, make sure you have interest. There are something that always triggers you to learn more and more and explore, and also you are more resilient when there's something challenging happen, when you don't get samples or anything, you know that you can still make it work, because I think the self-motivation, the interest to it will increase. Always remember, there is no shortcut. You need to read all your articles. There is never a shortcut in doing research. There is a continuous process, so you have to always read the articles. You have to really search for them. You have to really explore every element of the article. So Remember, there is no shortcut. Next is you need to be very, very systematic and transparent in your writing. You remember, this is a research, so people are reading it. So one thing that you need to remember is your audience. So make sure that they understand the way of your writing. You have to present the ideas very, very clearly and convincingly, okay, why your research is important and what does it bring into it. And be transparent when you're reporting it, okay. Don't do not hide certain things. If you did not do it, state it, these are the things I've done it, so people can make judgment. So don't try to make it look perfect, because none of the research is perfect, okay. There is flaws in it, because this is all human subjects. So do not falsify the data, or don't try to manipulate the data to look the best, okay. And don't be afraid of non-significant result, okay. If you get a non-significant result, there is no relationship, there is no significant difference, do not be afraid of these results. They are still valuable result to be reported, because you know that you have done it and you get all non-significant. So the next person, you can advise them not to do the same approach as you did. So your mistakes can be other person, next researcher's learning process. So take every results, every finding as a important contribution to the field, okay. So do not be afraid to report any non-significant results. So as I mentioned before, research is not perfect. So don't try to make your project to look perfect, because when you make it perfect, we can identify that this is a fake study. That means you made up the data, you made up the analysis, you made up the numbers. So that is not good. That is definitely unethical, and also it is totally violating the reason why you're doing the research. Report findings honestly, okay. So if whatever that happened, report it as it is, because as I said, that this will be a learning process for the next researcher. So it is always important to report them as it is. So I can conclude that research is not an easy thing to do. There is, as I said, there is no shortcut. We have to invest a lot of time in reading, in exploring, and I believe as a beginners, we will make a lot of mistakes. Do not be afraid of these mistakes, because this will mold you into a best researcher. And don't be too harsh on yourself, because you're just starting, okay. So once you get hold of conducting research, it will be a piece of cake for most of you, okay. So enjoy the process, that's the most important thing, and give your best in everything that you do. Be honest, be transparent, and I believe your research will be a successful project. Thank you.